This is Tomo Hussain reading for reviewer Steven Petite. Nintendo handhelds have thrived on their iterations for decades, from the Game Boy to the DS to the 3DS. Even with the iterative nature of Nintendo's handhelds, skepticism around the Nintendo Switch OLED is understandable since it's a console that is riffing on arguably the best piece of hardware Nintendo has ever made with seemingly minor improvements. But the Nintendo Switch OLED is a marked improvement over the original Switch and the Switch Lite. If you played a lot in handheld mode, the OLED model is a surprisingly huge upgrade, and if you don't play your Switch in handheld mode, the Switch OLED's new screen is impressive enough that it could change that. The Switch OLED has the best display on any dedicated handheld gaming device, ever. It starts with the design itself. Though the system is only a fraction of an inch larger than the standard Switch, it offers nearly an entire extra inch of screen real estate at an even 7 inches. With significantly slimmer bezels, the OLED screen gives off the illusion of being far more spacious than its predecessor. This presentational trick, if you want to call it that, is even more evident when you're playing games. From new releases like Metroid Dread to Switch staples like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, each game we tested looked brilliant on the new display. Brighter, more vivid colors make a huge difference, especially when playing the games with harsher color tones in spots. After playing for a few hours in a row on the OLED before jumping back to the original model, it can be surprising to see how long it takes your eyes to adjust to the duller tones. The most impressive aspect of the OLED's display actually isn't how it compares to the original Switch's screen, it's how it compares to TVs. Unless you have a 4K OLED TV, provided that frame rate and overall performance is the same, which is not always the case on the original Switch. The increased clarity and more colourful picture will make handheld mode a more enticing option for some users. The Switch OLED's largest improvement is in its name, but Nintendo also made some welcome additions elsewhere. The dock is wider and more aesthetically pleasing thanks to rounded edges on the top. The back panel that houses ports pops off instead of having a hinged flap. This is where you'll find another notable addition, an Ethernet port. It's still rather baffling that the original Switch didn't ship with a LAN port, forcing users to buy third-party adapters instead. The added port unsurprisingly makes a huge difference for download speeds and will likely provide a more stable online gaming connection for most users. That said, the Nintendo Switch's online performance troubles may stem from factors that go beyond individual Wi-Fi connections. The original Switch's kickstand, the small piece of plastic that propped up the console to play multiplayer without a TV, wasn't ideal. The OLED fixes that with a wide hinge stand that spans the entire back panel of the console. It's sturdy and can be placed at multiple angles. Critically, it doesn't feel as if it will snap just from messing with it. Though a smaller detail, the back panel has a slightly rough finish to it, and so far it seems less prone to those scratch marks that could pop up before long on the original model. The OLED also doubles the onboard storage from 32GB to 64. It's a nice improvement, but those who game on a Switch a lot will still need to expand their storage via microSD. Since microSD cards are so cheap anyway, there's no reason to consider the increased storage space as a real selling point. It's more of a little bonus. While the OLED model sticks with stereo speakers, audio is sharper and louder than before. It's not a massive improvement, but it's certainly noticeable when playing with the volume cranked up. For portable play, you're still better off using a pair of nice headphones, but it's a noteworthy upgrade for tabletop mode. It's important to stress that the internals of the system are exactly the same as the standard Switch. It has the same chipset, so overall performance between Switch models doesn't differ. I compared the load times to make sure, but nothing runs faster or smoother on the OLED. The console has the same port layout on top with the power button, volume controls, headphone jack, and game card slot positioned from left to right respectively. And the microSD card slot is still located beneath the kickstand. The Switch OLED's battery is the same as the upgraded model that launched in 2019. It's graded to last for 4.5 to 9 hours on a single charge. Battery life remains dependent on the games and apps you're using on the Switch. If you still have a launch model Switch or Switch Lite, the increased battery life is another welcome upgrade to consider. It's also worth noting that Nintendo hasn't updated the Joy-Cons for the OLED model, so they are still susceptible to Joy-Con drift. While that's a bummer, this also means that the OLED is compatible with all existing Joy-Con controllers, including third-party attachments like the Hori Split Pad Pro. The Switch OLED is fairly pricey at $350, especially if you already own a Switch console that works just fine. There are some hidden costs here too. For starters, you'll probably want to grab a set of screen protectors to protect your shiny new display. While many Nintendo Switch cases will fit the OLED model, form-fitting designs will likely need to be replaced. If you use a grip to make the Switch more ergonomic in handheld mode, you'll likely need a new one at some point too. Rigid plastic grips won't fit the OLED at all, and flexible silicone models are a tight squeeze and make the ports on top of the console inaccessible. The Nintendo Switch OLED is a more impressive design than you'd probably expect. The greatly improved display makes playing the Switch in handheld mode even more of a joy, and the other quality of life upgrades, particularly the retooling of the dock and the kickstand, offer nice features that will be appreciated by many. If you're looking to buy a Nintendo Switch for the first time, you should absolutely go for the OLED model if you can. And for those Nintendo fans who are wondering if the display is worth shelling out $350, it depends on how much you value handheld mode. Overall, the Switch OLED is another iteration on a piece of Nintendo hardware that you didn't know you needed.